for the next session, Communication of Equity Compensation, Engaging Employees for Success. For this, I would like to call Mr. Vikram Sivaraman, SVP Global GTM Capita. Vikram Sivaraman, Head India and Middle East, and he is one of the founding members of Capita and was first hired on the business side. He has over 15 years of experience in investment banking and equity management, having advised on funding M&A transaction worth rupees 800 million. Before joining Capita, he served as CFO at India's leading rural e-commerce startup, a CA rank holder and MBA graduate from IIM Ahmedabad. Vikram is a passionate about solving challenges for founders and startup. Can we have a huge round of applause for Mr. Vikram Sivaraman?
Speak in front of all of you today. Sorry, we got the technical issues resolved. Let me take a couple of minutes to introduce Capita and what we do at Capita. We are a 5-year-old company headquartered in Singapore, focusing on India and Southeast Asia, and now expanding to other geographies as well. We have been around for a bit, and we've also acquired a company called ESOP Direct, which maybe some of you may have worked with, who have spent almost 23 years on the equity compensation domain. So our mission is to help people realize the value of ownership, for people to gain more ownership, and for them to feel motivated by it, and for them to realize value in it. So to talk a little bit about what we do at Capita, we help in seeding, building, harnessing, and unleashing the power of ownership. So we provide all solutions surrounding equity compensation for HR professionals and for companies. We help in setting up your equity compensation scheme, benchmarking it to current market practices, helping decide your allocations, things like that in terms of setup. Once your scheme is set up, we operate a SaaS platform to roll out your scheme in a digital fashion to employees and administer the scheme digitally. As you scale as a company, more requirements in terms of reporting, in terms of compliance, valuations, all of that we serve under one roof. And unleashing the power of ownership in terms of providing options for liquidity if you're holding ESOPs in an unlisted or a private company, or providing financing options and mechanisms to sort of exercise, integrate with brokers if you are holding ESOPs in a listed company. So everything surrounding ESOPs under one roof is the way we want to be known among people in the HR side. Yeah, so we are the market leaders in our segment across India and Southeast Asia. We have close to 2,200 customers today, almost like 51 of the 115 odd unicorns, and 117 listed companies as well. And we see our market increasing as more people believe in passing on ownership to employees and motivating their employees and implementing schemes. So given that I've talked so much about ESOPs, why are we excited, and why did we see the value in terms of starting a company to focus exclusively on this? We see equity compensation. I use ESOPs as a very generic term. It can be an RSU, it can be a cash settle scheme, something which is linked to the equity value of the company. Now we see more people, or more companies having the desire to pass on ownership to employees. We see more interest from employees in not just working for a fixed and variable, but actually taking on some equity ownership stake in the company. And we see this to be a very critical tool for wealth creation for employees, and a very critical tool for attracting and retaining talent for companies. Just one anecdotal data point here, if I just take the top unicorns in India, 110 odd companies which have crossed $1 billion in value. This is only a small subset of 110 companies. They today are valued at somewhere around $360 billion. 5% of them probably will be held by employees through an ESOP pool. And that represents a value creation of $18 billion for employees. Now, unlike investors and founders, there was no capital involved here. This value has been created purely through the hard work and the sweat of the employees. And that's a potential for employees to sort of see a disproportionate upside as they work in these companies, as they generate value for these companies. So that's why we are excited about equity compensation and about ESOPs. Why should anyone even consider this? It's a great tool, like I said, for attracting, retaining talent. It's the only way for employees to see a disproportionate, sort of upside linked to the value creation which they sort of drive at some of these companies. It's a great way to drive an ownership mindset among employees. Employees stop thinking of themselves as employees, really start behaving like owners, take on more responsibility, and take long-term decisions rather than trying to maximize their short-term gain. And for startups especially, it's a great way to sort of conserve cash while still trying to attract the best of talent from large companies. So a lot of companies, like I said, show a lot of interest in terms of setting up these schemes, in terms of passing on ownership. But there are also a lot of them, and maybe some of you may have gone through these experiences. A lot of people come back and say, this really hasn't worked for us. Now, we've sort of tried to look at some of the reasons why people have not been very satisfied, both on the employee side as well as the company side. And a lot of it boils down to communication, which is why today I am talking about how to communicate your equity compensation, your ESOP schemes better, and how to engage with employees better. So the objective of setting up this entire process of passing on ownership is for you to attract, motivate, and retain talent. So like I said, it's critical that employees understand what they're getting and the value of what they're getting to really feel motivated about it. So it's very important to sort of focus on communication and engagement. In a lot of cases, companies do a flurry of activities at the time of the launch of the scheme, but on an ongoing basis, we see a lot of lacuna in terms of this actual communication and engagement. It's a way for companies, for managers, for HR teams to push for employees to perform better, achieve the organizational goals better, if they're able to demonstrate as to what those sort of metrics result in terms of company value, and what this value can result in terms of net worth and upside for the employee. So if I'm able to say that, yes, I need to hit my sales targets for us to raise the next round of funding, which gets us to a certain target valuation, which means my ESOPs are going to be worth this X amount. That chain is very critical for employees to really say that, yes, I really now need to do this just for my own personal self-interest. I need to grow my net worth, and this is the best way in which I can really grow my net worth very quickly. Employees perceive a certain value when it comes to their equity, and it's important for companies to make sure that this perceived value is going to be higher than the cost of actually rolling out your ESOP scheme. So there is a certain administrative cost, there's a certain one-time cost, and there is a certain accounting charge to your P&L as well. So your schemes will be successful if you ensure that the employees see more value out of it than what you are sort of incurring as a cost. How will employees perceive this value? One, they need to be convinced of the wealth creation potential of what they're holding in the form of ESOPs. So where is the company going? Where are all of us heading in the next maybe 3 years to 5 years or so? And if all of us go in that direction in terms of achievement of certain metrics like sales, profitability, in terms of achieving a certain valuation or next round of funding, what does it mean for me as an employee? How much is my net worth going to increase? So like I said, to establish that link will really help employees get more value, perceive more value out of their ESOPs. And for unlisted companies, to paint a path or to show a path towards liquidity. Unfortunately, in a lot of unlisted companies, there may be a lot of good wealth creation. Employees may be aware of it, but a lot of them are not given options in terms of a liquidation, in terms of actually taking out some portion of the wealth created in the form of ESOPs and using it for their personal consumption needs. So for management, even if not a commitment, for them to give some idea about how they intend to provide liquidity and when they intend to sort of do it will help in terms of driving this motivation. And this is a financial asset as far as employees are concerned. So it's critical for employees also to take the right decisions with respect to this asset. So should I exercise now and pay tax, or should I wait for a liquidity event or an IPO to happen? What are the implications of this decision? What is the expected appreciation which I can expect to see in the share price of the company? So all of these are parameters which go into employees optimizing their tax decision and to take the right financial decision in terms of risk and return. And it's important for employees also to make sure this companies to make sure this communication happens so that employees take the right financial decisions, see the impact of it, and thereby realize the full value of what they're holding in the form of ESOPs. So that's a few pointers in terms of why communication is critical. Now, across the life cycle of your equity compensation program, your ESOP program in the company, communication needs to happen very consistently, but with different intents and different focuses across each of these stages. So at the time I'm actually rolling out a program, key decisions are going to be taken with respect to who's going to be covered, what is the eligibility, how do we structure our plan, do we intend to allow our employees to exercise, or are we going to restrict exercise and have it happen at the time of an IPO? So these are key decisions taken at the plan level when you're setting up the scheme. It's important to sort of bring all of this out in some fashion so that employees understand it. Then I'm going down the path of actually granting ESOPs to my employees. So as an employee, I would love to know, like, how frequently am I going to get this? Is the company going to do it every year? Or is it going to be ad hoc? I'm going to do it maybe once in 3 years or something like that. How is the quantum determined? In a lot of cases, it's just at management's discretion. Employees are not given a sense as to why they're getting a certain number. But if there are some policies framed and communicated with respect to if you're at a certain band, then X percentage of your CTC is what you're going to get as equity. That is a good practice, helps employees also plan for it to say, yes, I'm expecting to get promoted and to get more equity in the company. Apart from the standard terms in any grant, your grant quantum, exercise price, vesting schedule, all of it should be communicated very clearly, and employees should understand it very clearly. And some means in terms of helping employees understand that, yes, we are fairly generous as a company with respect to equity compensation. We are giving you something which most of your other peers are not getting. If that's a way in which you can position your equity program, then you get much more results out of it, I would say. So I get my grants as an employee. I go through the process of vesting. For me to be informed, it's very obvious for a lot of us to say, yes, you got a grant letter. The grant letter has a vesting schedule. But a lot of employees, probably just forget about it and just file it and forget it. So to have continuous reminders to say, yes, you've vested X quantum of ESOPs. Somewhere it gives employees a sense that, yes, now I am richer and my net worth has increased by a certain quantum, even if it is notionally on paper. Just gives them that little bit of extra motivation. And if you have performance conditions, milestones which employees need to accomplish before they sort of vest their options, then clear communication with respect to where they are with respect to the milestone. So I stand to get a performance-linked ESOP if I achieve sales of, let's say, $1 million. So where am I today? I am probably 50% of that. And what do I need to achieve to make sure that vesting condition is met? Helps companies or helps employees really feel that, yes, the company actually wants me to succeed and they want me to get this tranche of vesting. And that's why they're going the extra mile to communicate. And of course, the company benefits as the targets are met. So these are things which probably need to be focused on during the vesting of the options as vesting sort of happens. As employees separate, most people have concerns, what's going to happen to my ESOPs? So yes, they are separated employees, but hopefully they have added some value to you in their journey. So you would want to give them some clarity, even upfront, to say this is what will happen to your options. Your unvested portion will cancel, of course, but whatever is vested, we are going to give you like 3 years or 5 years to actually come back and ask for exercise. And that is implication. That's the implication of the decision which you're taking today. So to help employees on separation, with a bit of a trigger to say, yes, this is what is going to happen to your options, and to create some action points for the employee to say that, yes, you have a certain exercise period, make sure you come back to us and exercise it within that period to avoid losing the benefit of your options. So that is like a good HR practice, I would say. And as I go through my tenure in the company, or as an exited employee, as I've left the company, some communication with respect to any events of liquidity, and potentially providing some of these employees a means of participating in that liquidity event. So even though I've left the company, it might have been a couple of years, if I'm called back to participate in the liquidity, then I'm going to leave with a very favorable opinion of the company. And I'm probably going to tell other people to say, I got the value of my options, even though I'd sort of left the company. And that's because the company actually created options for me, allowed me to participate in liquidity, and notified me of it when this process was sort of happening. So on exercise, it's like I said, it's a financial decision. It results in taxation for an employee, which is not a huge problem if you're holding options of a listed company. You can always sell and realize the tax. But if it's an unlisted company, employees need to finance this exercise of ESOPs and finance the taxation element of it. So to give them some advance notice of what you plan to do, when you plan to open an exercise window, giving them options or communicating options to them in terms of how taxation works and how they can manage their taxation. and a lot of clarity with respect to the process itself. It's typically, it's a corporate secretarial process. There's going to be a bunch of documentation, KYC involved. Most employees are caught unawares when the window is opened and they're not prepared, they're not ready with the right documents. So to give clarity ahead of time so that employees can act upon it, can exercise if they choose to, or at least take a decision if they don't want to, they know that the exercise window is open. And finally, when it comes to liquidation itself, where I'm actually realizing the cash value of my ESOPs. If I'm an unlisted company, like I said, to provide events for liquidity in terms of where employees can participate, can convert a portion of their ESOPs into cash, and to help them understand the implications of the decision, the pricing, and the process involved. Or if it's a listed company, for companies to sort of give communication, have integrations with brokers, provide options in terms of financing, or even if they're not doing it directly, to tie up with other people to provide financing for exercise, are all things which can be done and which as employees we would want to sort of see happening, just to ensure that we are getting the full value of our options in the company. So I'm going to cover a few best practices with respect to options itself in terms of communication, frequent town halls. Most people do a town hall, hold a launch event when the options are getting launched, but to have it as part of your employee town hall process, to give updates on the option plan every year would be like a good practice. To have like some sort of an online portal for employees to log in, to track their vesting, to understand the value of what they're holding. And actually link it, let me jump to the fifth point here, to really help employees in understanding the wealth creation potential. So not just my value today, based on my valuation today, where are we going to as a company in terms of value, and what does it mean for my ESOPs is something which I may want to see. A few other quick sort of actions, FAQs, resources to help employees understand ESOPs a little bit better, and some guidance in terms of liquidity and monetization options are all good things to do in terms of making sure you see value in terms of your employees' options itself. So I think my time's about up, but I'll just quickly request a lot of HR leaders in the room today. We conduct an equity compensation survey, the only one of its kind in India, and we publish the results in our annual conference, which happens in December. I would request all of you, so many HR leaders with sort of who sort of take these decisions on a day in, day out basis. If you could sort of stop by our stall and maybe fill out this survey, we'll be happy to sort of share a copy with you and also maybe invite you for our conference, which happens here. It contains a lot of trends with respect to equity compensation, quantum, best practices, etc. Will add a lot of value to you as you plan your compensation for next year. We also have a fairly large team here, 3 of my colleagues in the stall. I'm also going to be hanging around for most of the day. Would love to host you, answer any queries you may have with respect to equity compensation, or see in any way if we at Capita can sort of help you in your journey. But thanks a lot, and hope to stay engaged. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vikram. I would request you to please stay back on the dais. And to do the felicitation, I would like to call Ms. Merlin Lewis from NatWest Group. Can we have a huge round of applause?